Okay. Hey guys, homebrew stuff. Let's talk about somebody else. So, not everyone believes that they exist. Some people say they've been sighted. Some people say that they've killed one. Ooh, most likely not. Um, but something that does exist in my world and would be considered, one of the um, self-aware, conscious, cultured races are dragons. Um, but my players have never encountered a dragon. One party luckily didn't notice a wyvern running by in the forest nearby. I did this to them when they were level 1 or 2, right? It was supposed to be one of these like, well, if you're stupid, here you go. It's not like I don't tell people Rollmaster's a fatal system. Um, and that my world isn't relatively realistic, as far as like, hey, stuff is hard, stuff not everyone's not running around with money in their pockets, and my phone is ringing suddenly. Go away. Um, but no one's run into a dragon, um, and there aren't like people running around as part of the Dragon Slayers Guild or anything like that. So the players, I've never actually asked my players, but my players may have thought that I just didn't even have dragons in my world, or maybe they thought I was just keeping them nice and far away until they were high enough level to deal with them. But no, dragons exist. Um, they come from the same elemental astral creation force that also made lizards and stuff like that. That's why they're reptilian. Um, but they also come from a combination between that astral and another astral that's a source of one of the magics. Interestingly enough, Rollmaster, as of those of you who are familiar with that, if you already played it or maybe you've listened to the rest of my Rollmaster series, has 3 realms of magic. Um, that's not the 3 astrals. All those 3 realms belong to one astral, magic astral in my world. In the creation aspect of my setting. Um, uh, and part of that's because in Rollmaster Companion 1, I believe, when they bring in archmages and archists, one of the things they talk about is archmagic, and they're like, archmagic could either be um, what you get when you put all 3 types of magic together, or it's actually the root that all 3 magics come from. Your decision as a GM in your own setting. My decision was that the 3 types of magic, channeling, essence, and mentalism, are all tendrils from one root, but that there are 2 other types of magic. Essentially, one is technomagic, right? So if gunpowder was to ever be created in my world, it was actually not going to be because if you take this chemical and that chemical and you add heat or some other combustion force to it, it explodes. Blah, blah, blah. No, that's how they'll understand it. That's essentially right. Like that's essentially the verbal and somatic and whatnot components of the spell. It works because it's magic, right? So they might be thinking they're studying a science, but actually what's making it really happen is the astral that's responsible for this type of magic. And the other type of magic is biological, the thing where you just mess with your own body, like you change your own body to do things that the body shouldn't be able to do, right? So that already has this concept of what the body can do, right? And that's kind of like in the feats. Well, in Rollmaster U, it'd be the feats or the talents that exist now, and in Rollmaster 2, it would have been parts of the table and parts of the racial descriptions and stuff like that. That was stuff that biology could already do. Um, but this magic would be more of, yeah, a fireball just comes out of your mouth. Yeah, you just turn invisible. Yep. The body doesn't actually do those things, but the body learning how to control magic in like internally at a cellular level rather than a force projection sense. Um, that's a different kind of magic. So dragons are the people who are dragons, the peoples, right? They are peoples. Just because they're not humanoids, they're still peoples. The peoples who are the dragons are a people who were created by like the reptilian kind of astral and this biological magical uh, astral getting together and saying let's make a life. What would we make? Let's study that. Um, so they were created. The dragons didn't even look like dragons at some time, right? Go back far enough, they were probably just lizard men, right? With a propensity for certain magic. But becoming dragons is essentially what they chose to do with their power. And it's essentially permanently changed them. And this is also why you've got some that throw fire and some that throw lightning and some of them that turn invisible and some of them that shape change easily and some of them that are gold and some of them are blue and some of them are this and some of that. Some of them have one wing, one set of wings, two set of wings, three set of wings, no set of wings. Live in the water. They are by character highly individual creatures. They don't actually really like, for the most part, to get together. They mostly get together to mate and raise offspring and to maintain some sense of unity and some sense of diplomacy and interconnectedness, because they are the same people and because they all have that same common desire for being independent and being left alone, and the rest of the world's like politics and stuff like that being of no interest to them and not wanting to get pulled into anything, then it is basically in all of their interest to make sure that, like, you don't have a dragon that's going to go over and introduce itself to the Fair Elf High Council and start a relationship there and letting go of secrets and letting them know where their one city is, because they do have a city, and stuff like this, right? So, that's essentially it. That's essentially the dragons. Again, I don't actually have a whole lot of need to put a whole lot of culture into it at that point, because or cultural, development, because the player's never gone there, right? Like, sure, a top-down world creation, but not every detail, because I don't have need for it. Allows us to expand a bit more. Not that that was my plan back then, but certainly now I understand the benefit of that. And since I haven't gotten that far, I won't go any further. But that's them. And it's kind of an interesting, like, and by the way, I meant to start this whole video with this. If you watched my Twitch channel and watched how I themed it or anything like that, I'm a big dragon fan. You probably see my dragon shirt. I have one or two I think I just have one dragon shirt. Before we moved, and before I moved into this house, before we moved even to the state, back in Nebraska, I had a little dragon somewhere, I think behind me. On the bookshelf, there was a little crystal dragon. Ribbit Froggy, she collects frogs. I got the dragon collection. So the dragons are a big thing for me, and this was not like some like idea I had for dragons the whole time. Like, oh, dragons in other settings could really just be this. I came up with something completely different that would just be a different genesis for dragons. So, anyways, next I'll continue these unknown civilized races of the world.